cameras up. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're joining us from. My name's Americo, and I want to welcome all of you to another episode of Experience Matters. I have a special guest today, Tracey Pirozzi, who's going to be joining us. We have a fantastic conversation lined up for you. She's sitting backstage waiting to join the conversation. And before we bring her up, just want to let everyone know the chat is live. We have our friend Meryl who has joined, and looking forward to anyone who joins along the way on our team live expedition. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. If you want to join us up on stage, please let me know. I'll drop the link throughout the show, and you can join us on stage and ask Tracey some questions that you might have for her. So without further ado, let's cue up some welcoming cheers. Let's bring Tracey up. All right, let's also change the camera. Tracey, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
Well, how are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic. It is a pleasure to have you on the show, and a true testament to how well the LinkedIn effect really works. You and I connected. We weren't introduced to anyone. We just started to follow each other, and I believe it was through the Social Saturday thread that brought us together. And every Saturday, you'd take your motorcycle out for a ride, and you'd share your story, part of your narrative. And I'm going to keep my mouth shut. Why don't I let you introduce yourself, and we'll get the party started. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, first of all, I really want to thank you for the opportunity to do this. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited to have this discussion with you today and hopefully help other people that have some issues with this and really get them on the same page with their teams and their organizations. May I say first, before I get started, Meryl Cass, I see that you are from Paramus, New Jersey, and I worked in Paramus, New Jersey for many, many years. So I want to say hi. Maybe we've seen each other in the Garden State Plaza Mall or something. I don't know. Anyway.
Well, shout out to Meryl Cass from Paramus, New Jersey. Meryl is a connector of people. He brings so much community together. He attends shows, he invites people to shows, he engages in shows, and it's great to see that someone who knows Paramus and not needing Meryl to explain that, hey, there is a place in Jersey that exists, and I'm part of that community. So now there's two people that I know who are familiar with Paramus. Everyone else, welcome to the show. Let's get the slides queued up. So communication alignment. I put out a poll, and we're going to get into the poll. But before we do that, why don't we let you share with our audience, those who are joining us live and those who are catching us on replay. Tell us a little bit about who you are and a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. So first of all, I started in about 35 years ago in human resources. And so that was my jam. Loved human resources, loved to help people, loved to make a difference in people's lives. And so that was my calling. So I just kind of stumbled into it. And what happened, though, is over my many years of doing that, I saw that a lot of managers, leaders, and then their direct reports or their teams did not have communication that was aligned. So that was part of my enlightenment, if you will, into, okay, there's something here that I think I can hopefully help people to navigate. And, there would be times when I would have conversations with those leaders, and it would be a discussion point for some improvement that someone needed to have. And then when we would actually sit down and have the conversation with that individual, it was clear to me that they were just not speaking the same language. And so that's where, again, it was enlightening for me to say, hey, you know what? People are really not understanding each other. And when I decided to move down to Florida, I originally thought I was going to be finding a job in corporate America, just like I did up north. And there really weren't too many opportunities for me to do that in the capacity that I was looking for. So I decided to go out on my own, and I learned all about work preferences, which I know we'll get into in a little bit, and how that really aligns with communication and how it's so important. And once I really learned how that was effective for teams to be more productive, be more collaborative, then I really jumped on that part of my journey to start that new chapter to get everybody to understand and help them be more collaborative and more productive. So it's just really been a really great part of my journey out on my own now. I've been doing this for about 6 years, having my own company. So, and that's what I do. I do leadership coaching. I do one-on-one leadership coaching. I also do team building. So I get teams to be more collaborative and productive by way of more effective communication and communication alignment. And then I do trainings. So soft skill trainings, again, communication skills. I do how to be accountable, stress management, time management, things like that.
Fantastic.
That's how I started.
And now, if we end up having time at the end, or even throughout, feel free to bring it in. Tracey, the person, and the narrative behind Tracey, not so much the business owner, but the person. I see
Gotcha.
so many fantastic pictures. You with tigers, you on your African safari, and
Yes.
if you can insert some of that, I'd love to hear, and I'm sure the audience would love to hear it. But today, our focus is going to be communication alignment. But feel free, because I love hearing those stories and how we can blend our personal narratives into our professional lives. And
Sounds good.
everyone encourages us more of that, and I struggle with bringing my personal narrative into this domain. But you know what? I'm going to give it a try. So if I encourage others to do it, then it'll compel me to have to do it as well. All right. So
Sounds
we have a few others who have joined us. My friend Camila Ferreira, who is from Brazil, but also resides just south of you. If I'm not mistaken, she's in Miami. So a few Floridians that make up part of my community. I invited all of them, and those who were able to join or watch the replay will do so. All right. So team alignment. Let's jump into it. Last week, just to set the stage for our conversation, I put out a poll, and I asked my community, how aligned do you feel your team is when it comes to communication? And I was just as excited as you were to see how people would respond. And maybe we're not going to be surprised with the results, but 1/3 of respondents said, "Yeah, we're totally aligned. We're all rowing in the same direction. We're all marching to the beat of the same drum, and that's great to see." But when you take a look at the other results, where 41% said that they're somewhat aligned, 22% who just came out and said, "Yeah, we're not aligned at all. We're so far apart." So I hope that particular group is here or watching the replay, and hopefully they can pick something up. And if they find value, perhaps even reach out to you. Now, small percentage, 6% of respondents said that they're not sure. Now, that just tells me that there's so much disarray that when you haven't seen cohesion in the workplace, you don't know what it looks like. So you have no idea if you're aligned or not, because you don't know what it's supposed to look and feel like, right? So
Yeah.
let's jump into the first question here and how we can help our audience. So
Yeah.
there are issues where teams get stuck. Listen, I've been part of those teams where whether it's a project or just a team meeting, you feel that there's misalignment and everyone's kind of pulling and pushing in different directions, and there's this level of dysfunction, and you find yourself going into meetings not knowing why you're in a meeting, and these meetings just become
Mhm.
circular, and the communication, you come out more confused than you went in, and you're
Yep.
being asked to do something and you feel like it's forced on you because you have no idea as to why you're doing something, and when you ask, it's don't worry about it, it's part of the bigger picture, and no one really understands the bigger picture. Like, let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I love this question because it's something that I really try to drive across a lot of clients and people in general when I have conversations with them. And I think that when you and I actually had a conversation when we first did our own private Zoom together, a lot of times managers and leaders don't realize that they really need an agenda. So that's the first thing with a meeting. Why am I here? Like you said, a lot of times people are like, I don't know why I'm here. If people send out an agenda beforehand and then also share the fact of what is expected of each participant in the room before they get there, it will be so much more clear to everyone what's going on. It will also help people to contribute. We will talk about, again, some preferences, but we have the extroverted people and introverted people. And extroverts, very talkative. They like to talk while they are thinking or think while they're talking. Both ways work. And so what happens is they tend to be the loudest person in the room. And then the introverts, they have a lot to say, but what they do is they need to think about things first before they speak. So they need to be more prepared. It's not that they don't have anything to say. They just want to think about things before they speak. So when you have an agenda and those introverted people have enough time to really process what is expected of them, that is golden, because then they will come to the meeting with those expectations and know what is expected of them, rather than feeling like, oh my gosh, I just got called on and I don't know what to say. And now I'm very flabbergasted, or I don't know what to think about. Now, extroverted people want that too. Don't get me wrong. It's not only for the introverted people, but it's really helpful to let people know, number one, what is expected of them so that they can come prepared. It will make your meeting run so much more smoothly when of course, you have an agenda. I always encourage everybody, I'm sure people have heard this time and time again, but have a parking lot with your meeting. If your meeting is set for 45 minutes and no more, no less, and they really shouldn't go longer than an hour, in my personal opinion, because you're just hashing over too many things at one time. But have that agenda, have that parking lot if things go, and then you can set another meeting based on whatever is on the parking lot. So that's number one. Also, transparency. People need to be transparent as to what the reason for the meeting is. Where do you fit? Like you were saying, like, why do I have to do it? And then some people say, okay, well, I don't know why I'm doing it. And just here's the big picture. There are people, again, work preferences, that want the details. Some people can't see the big picture. Other people that see the big picture can't see the details or don't prefer to see the details. So it's really important to know those work preferences, which again, we'll get into. But once you really have that transparency to tell people where they fit in a team, in a role, or in the organization, that will really, really go a long way for morale, for their motivation and engagement. So that's
So
my,
So
we had
yeah.
some great
we had some great
comments,
comments,
and now I'm hearing myself
and
echo.
now
Do
I'm
you hear
hearing
that?
myself echo. Do you hear that?
I do not.
Okay.
Okay.
Mike asked the
Mike
question.
asked the question.
or made the comment, stick to the agenda.
Yes.
And how important is that? Because when you send an agenda out and you have a group who has a hidden agenda,
Yes.
someone's up for promotion. Here's the stage. Here's where I can stand out. Like, how do you control that? Because that contributes to the whole function.
It sure does. So my suggestion is to always have part of the agenda at the very beginning can be the rules of engagement of the meeting. We're going to stick with the agenda, period. If we have other comments that need to be explained, then or discussed, put it in the parking lot. So I would just say that and just tell people that is steering away from the agenda. While it is important, it's not that it's not important, but we are going to put it on the agenda.
Excellent. Yeah, it's so important, and keeping your team on track and keeping them on time, because I've seen 30-minute meetings turn into hours.
100%.
All right, so
yes, it can be disrespectful to everyone in the room when there are other things to be going on as well. So
I'm going to jump off camera and jump back on. Give me 2 seconds here.
Sure. We sure have a lot of parking lots in Paramus. Yes, you are correct, Meryl. Many in those big 5 gigundor malls. You're absolutely right. That's funny.
All right, let's give this a try.
The echo is driving people crazy. I don't have anything else open, Americo, so I'm not sure if it's me.
So our audience can hear it as well.
Yeah, I don't hear it. So I'm wondering, is it me?
Let's see. Is there an echo?
I don't know.
All right, there's no echo when I took you off camera.
Okay.
Okay, so let's jump into your settings and check your audio settings.
Sure. Okay.
And select. I don't know what you have in terms of options, but unselect what you have and reselect it and see if that changes.
All right. Okay, is that helping now?
Let's see. I still hear the echo.
You do. I actually have chosen my echo canceling speakerphone. That's what it says. And it's on. Echo cancellation is on and noise suppression is on. Maybe I'll show advanced. Stereo input is off, high resolution is off, and audio gain control is on. I don't know what that is. Auto gain control. Should I turn that off?
I'm going to try changing my settings as well.
All right. Can we hear the echo? We can.
Sorry, everybody.
Hang tight, folks.
Let me do this.
And you mentioned you don't have LinkedIn running on the background, right?
Is that better for me now?
I don't hear the echo.
Okay.
Can you hear me? And can the audience hear me? If we can get acknowledgement from the audience, and then we'll continue.
Live troubleshooting is always fun.
Live troubleshooting is always fun. There's never a dull moment.
No. Is that better? Am I better now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, without the echo. All right.
Okay.
So let's continue. All right.
Oh,
So
sorry about
let's jump into the next question here in terms of some of the signs and in your experience, what are some of the signs, some of the difficulties that are being suffered when it comes to communication and the misalignment of communication?
Yeah. So obviously, when people are misaligned, things can really go awry. So when people are not having the same messaging, so there is a difference between a good communicator, which means that we're all understanding each other, we are having active listening and such. Then alignment is really having the same messaging, really making sure that your mission of the department or of the organization is clear to everyone and that everyone is focused on that. And that every time you're having a task or you're working on something or trying to solve a problem, to really make sure that you're trying to go ahead with that mission. And does that problem solving align with your mission? So, that's one thing. I see that the echo is back. They're gone? Okay. They're back, they're gone, they're back, they're gone. Okay. So, all right, I'll keep going. Let's see. So the other thing is that sometimes with a team, you have the loudest speakers. The loudest speakers are the people that usually tend to, not intentionally, but they take over meetings sometimes. And so some people then just sit back and they don't give their opinion because they feel like they may not get a chance to have voiced their opinion in this meeting. Or maybe that person knows better and my opinion might sound silly to other people. So we don't always give people the chance to really share their opinions. And so we have to make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak. I'll actually give you an example.
Yes.
I had someone in one of my teams that I was working with, one of my clients, and 14 months ago, I just met up with him in LA last week. And 14 months ago, I did a team building with this particular group. And he had told me that he still used one of the suggestions that I had given them because of work preferences of the people within the team. So this particular team, when I do this, you'll see an array. I literally have people stand on the floor based on their assessment results of their work preferences. And so a whole bunch of people were on one side of their preferences, the overall, and the other one person literally was on the other side. And this happened to be how they prefer relationships, how they prefer to communicate with each other, build relationships. And so most of the team, 99% of the team was extroverted. That one person was introverted. And this person that I met up with last week in LA told me that he still remembered that I said to the team, you have to let that one person speak and give him a chance to speak. And so he acknowledged himself that he's one of the speakers that talks all the time, and they get excited. People get excited about their point of view. They get excited when something seems to be like a great idea. It's wonderful, but you do have to make sure that everybody in the team, in the room, gets a chance to literally speak. So what he would do is when he noticed that there were people that were all jumping on the bandwagon together, he would say, okay, everybody, let's give Joe, literally the guy's name is Joe, let's give Joe a chance to speak. And he said there were so many times when they did that he provided so much benefit because everybody else was going into their, I like to call it jumping off the mountain. If one person says, hey, let's jump off the mountain, everybody else says, yeah, because it's groupthink. That sounds great idea. Let's go. Joe's the one who's going to raise his hand and say, hey, wait a minute. Did anybody think about bringing a parachute? Right? So you get different perspectives from people when they do have a difference of work preference than you and the group. So that's something that's really important as well.
In terms of preference, I know we're going to dive a little deeper, but I'm looking at this first bullet on this slide, and it says why skilled teams get stuck. And there are different hiring managers, those who believe, you know what, you hire all the skilled people that you need and you put your team together. But that isn't perfect always, right? You bring people who are perfect in their particular disciplines and their particular accountabilities, and then you put them all in a room on a project and things fall apart. Right.
Yeah.
And then there's the school of thought where, you know what, if we hire someone who's green or a group of people who are green, we can train them the way we want them.
Yes.
How do we demystify which is better? Because it could work either way, right?
It really can, you know, and I really think that what you need to do is look at what is best for the team and get their understanding of, first of all, the best skills that they have, in addition to what their best preferences are. And I know we're going to talk about preferences again. I'm so into preferences, you know me. But as far as communication alignment, everyone needs to understand on the team, what is the mission of the team? What is the mission of the goal? So that everybody can deal with that and learn to modify their behavior. Get everybody, like I said before, when you're working on a problem or a project, make sure that that is in alignment with your mission. Make sure it's in alignment with the goal, to really, again, make sure that you are going to help the organization meet the strategic business goals that they actually have. So I don't know that there's a right or wrong, Americo, to your answer. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's really about everybody in the team understanding what the mission is and go from there. It could be benefits to both, could be detrimental to both, detriments to both. I know, is that kind of wishy-washy answer?
Well, no, that's the real answer. Because it's got to be right for the team at the moment or for the project, and you got to be prepared to pivot and change as your team evolves, right? You're going to experience churn within your team, and someone new is going to come in and join the project or join the team, and you're going to have to make that realignment and refine things.
Yeah. And transparency is important for that new person to be coming in as well. Let them know what those missions are, where you're going, what is the goal of that particular project, problem, issue, things like that.
And Mike is adding, that assumes leadership actually wants the best for the mission in the company.
That's correct. That is correct. And you do have to get leadership on board with the mission. If leadership is not on board with the mission, then you have a completely different issue.
All righty. I hear the echo as well.
Oh, no.
All right. So how do work preferences and communication styles intersect, and why does that matter?
Yeah. So what happens is people have different preferences, as we have been discussing. And so when we talk about work preferences, there may be somebody, let's say that somebody who likes to be an advisor, and they are someone who really talks about being detailed. They would be somebody who is reflective. They may ask a lot of questions. So based on their work preference, that's how their communication style intersects with that. Somebody who promotes things, who's really excited to share the good things that the team is doing. They're energetic and they're future focused, and they may speak in like a bigger picture language instead of a detailed language like we were talking about earlier. They may have, this grandiose picture, but other people don't necessarily see that grandiose picture, and they need those details. Somebody who is a producer who likes to do things, their language is going to be task focused rather than theory focused. So somebody might be theory focused, but that's not going to help this particular person. They value efficiency. They value make sure that things are happening at the same time consistently, that the company or the team is producing things consistently based on what the client's needs are. So it really, really depends on when people work toward their preferences, it really affects how they talk, how they listen, how they behave, how they share information. So that is really important for people to understand. And when we understand our own preferences, we can then really see that there's a different preference within other people. And when we make sure that we understand those preferences of other people and modify our behavior, those people are likely to be more engaged. They're likely to be more motivated to go to work and really get things done effectively and in an excited way. They want to go to work rather than, oh, I have to do X task today. It's not my preference and I really don't want to. But that communication is so important based on what their preferences are. So like I said, some people like detailed things. Some people like the bigger picture. And I know that people are having a problem with the echo still. Yeah.
Let's try the headset. We tried the headset before we
All
went
right.
live.
Let's see. Let's see what I can do here. Sorry about that, everybody.
All right. No worries.
Let me try my thing.
Yeah. We'll put a few sound effects here. I know Meryl loves the crickets.
Crickets.
Can you hear me?
I hear you. And
Am I echoing?
I don't hear the echo.
Oh, okay.
Do you
Hopefully that's it.
All right. All right. Let's continue. I don't hear the echo. We might be scot-free now.
Okay.
So can we take a moment and circle back on style versus personality? Because there's one thing to have preferences, but you know, when you're a team of 2 or 3, it's easy to manage. But when you're a team of 7 or 8, and you got different styles and different personalities and different preferences, how do you juggle all of that to keep everyone kind of happy?
Yeah.
Collaborating?
Yeah, it's interesting. So when you are really focusing on what people's preferences are, it's what I do, just so that you know, is I actually use an assessment. So that assessment really talks about how you prefer to work. And then what I do is I get that team together. So it could be a team. I usually do up to 20, 30 people. And then what we do is, like I said, we literally stand on a line and I talk about the preferences and show people physically where they stand so that other people can understand each other. So I just want to do a check. We're good with the
I think we're good. Mike
okay.
just
I didn't want to go on and on and drive people
coming
crazy.
in clear.
All right,
coming
good.
in clear.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so so I can have a team up to like 30 people that I do with this team building, and what we do is we actually, number one, share our preferences, because a lot of times, you know, as we've talked about, Americo, when you have preferences, your preferences are your whole life. Your preferences are learned, number one. And a personality is a completely different thing, because a personality is really like who you are. It's ingrained in you. It's how you live your life in all aspects of life. Yet a preference is a learned behavior. So when you do something well, let's just say you always meet a deadline, and your boss and your coworkers give you kudos for that, or your boss gives you a bonus or something like that, you're more likely to hit those deadlines then, and you get a good reward for that. So you're like, okay, that's great. But yet if you have you miss deadlines and someone really comes down on you for that, then you're more likely not to have that behavior going forward. But if you are someone who sees deadlines as flexible because maybe, somebody gave you a deadline, however, you are very worried about providing documentation or a finished product that will not be complete because you're still waiting on someone else, you might want to put off that deadline because it's not going to be the best product you can possibly provide. And so if everybody else says, oh, well, that's okay, then your behavior over time, you're giving a good product, and you also know that you might be missing a deadline, but it was worth it. Now, I'm not saying you should always miss a deadline. That's not what I'm saying at all. But it's just that it's a learned behavior that that sometimes you have learned that deadlines can be movable, or sometimes people give you a false deadline or what have you. So those are preferences, yet personalities are ingrained in you. Regardless if you're at home or you're at work. When we're talking about work preferences, we're really talking about at work. And a lot of times, if you think about it, we're a different person at work than we are at home.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there is a merge. There definitely is some overlap, but you could go to my office, and when I worked in corporate America, and my desk would have 50,000 piles of paper on it and all that good stuff. And people would come in and go, how do you know where anything is? And I'm like, don't touch any of my stuff because I know exactly where it is on that pile. It's 5 pages down and I will know it's this form here or whatever. But yet if you're in my house, what happens is everything is very orderly. So we are two different people than one at work and one at home. So that's the difference. And so when we understand, again, those work preferences, like I was talking about a minute ago, and sharing those work preferences, that will help everyone be more productive and more collaborative and more communicative and be aligned together when people really understand those preferences and that communication style.
And I will be the first to step up and say it's okay to be two different people at work and at home, because we've all experienced, I'm sure to some degree, people who forget to check themselves at the door and they bring their home life into the office and it just derails everything, right?
Yeah.
And that could be a show in and of itself.
Correct.
But here's a question. I'm going to circle back to one of the comments that Mike made.
Sure.
And tie it to one of my next questions. So people mostly leave their bosses and not their jobs. So when you're tailoring, you say you complete an assessment to really understand everyone's preference. Yeah. Have you ever come across an instance where you're doing an assessment and someone tells you, good luck getting it past Americo. Okay, Americo's the boss, and he's, let's call Americo the narcissist.
Sure, okay.
You can have all the ideas and all the preferences you want, but ultimately we're doing this Americo's way.
Yeah.
Right.
So I would still venture to say that what that person can do is actually go have a conversation with Americo and understand his preferences. And there may be a perception that because Americo says this is the way it has to be, that everybody feels like they have to fall in line. Let me give you an example. I had one of my clients, and he, just for the way he processes things, his preferences, when he's trying to think of new ideas or he's trying to talk out a situation, he would go on a whiteboard and he would explain everything on the whiteboard and go, well, what if we did this? And what if we did that? And blah, 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 blah. All of his direct reports took that as, or his team members took that as, he was saying because it was on the whiteboard, their perception was that meant that everybody had to do it his way. And he told me, Tracey, it's not true. It's just the fact that that's how I process information, is I have to use a whiteboard to do things. But everybody on his team thought that he meant, because he was very animated, he was, again, one of the loudest voices in the room, that people thought that he was just saying it had to be his way. But if someone is telling Americo that I might have a different idea, would you like to hear it? Or can I share a different idea with you? You're the ultimate boss, you're the decision maker, but would you like to hear my perspective? Or maybe, I have a different way that maybe perhaps you haven't thought about before. That may be a way to navigate that. But what I would do is say, try to figure out what Americo's preferences are.
All right.
What is your preference? Talk to me about, are you looking for a solution when you're asking me to come to you with an idea? Or are you just telling me what I'm supposed to come to you with?
It's funny. So if we're going to refer to Americo in the third person, I will tell you, I've been caught instances because my leadership style is to empower others to kind of bring their thoughts and their efforts to fruition. And
Absolutely.
I've had that come back and bite me, where someone would complain. It's like, Americo's got me doing this work. It's like, well, no. Americo's trying to empower you,
right,
and not take all the credit and make all the decisions. So it really becomes vital to help people. And throughout, we talk about transparency, but helping people understand the why you're making the changes and why this is your preference or why this is your style.
100%.
Right. So
yes.
if we go back to the example I gave, where, the boss or the manager or the leader, because of their personality, comes off as being, someone who just takes charge and it's their way or no other way. How about in reverse order? So you have a background in HR. I've got a background, and I'm sure a lot of us have backgrounds in leadership. What happens to that workplace bully? I've encountered it, and I'm sure a lot of people have encountered it. We're all collaborating. We all understand each other's preferences. We have great objective, great goals. And then you get the workplace bully who says, all right, forget about everything Tracey just said. We're doing it this way.
Yeah. I would ask the team, how does that person's way meet the mission? Does it meet the goal? So if it doesn't, I think that what has to happen is, it's really hard, and I know it, and you know it, and I think we've had this discussion before. It's really hard to get those people with that personality to bend, to potentially see the other side. But that's a personality thing. If there's a way to engage in conversation, to just say, okay, everybody's going to go around the room and talk about their preferences. When we talk about our preferences, even that person, it makes more of a language barrier to disappear. And by language, of course, I don't mean, a dialect or anything like that. I mean language around teams. It would really help to diffuse those people that keep saying, well, I'm the bully and you have to do it my way. Because if everybody can engage in conversation around their preferences, the details, or the analytics, or whatever it must be, there's a way to navigate that. So let me tell you about this. So yeah, I understand, Michael, ego over team, for sure. There are people like that. You're not going to change every single person. There's no way. But I'll give you a personal example. So I was a VP of HR in an organization, and the leader brought me in because I talked about mentorship program. And when I talked about a mentorship program, he told me he hired me because during the interview process, I talked about that mentorship program. When I went to get his approval on the mentorship program, he denied it. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I'm so confused. So he didn't, I shouldn't say he denied it, but he gave me pushback. And what he did was he said, tell me who's using this mentorship program. Tell me their ROI. Tell me about this. Tell me about that. Tell me about the other. And me, not being a data person, was like, you hired me to be a subject matter expert. You hired me to bring this particular program in, right? But now you're telling me you want all this backup data. And I'll be honest, I shut down because I was like, I don't know what more, this is crazy. So what happened was, if I had known about the preferences before, I know now what I should have done with him. And what I should have done was realized what his preferences were and given him his analytics that he wanted, a pile this big, even though I could have gotten somebody else to do it for me because it's not my jam. But I would have been able to give it to him. He probably would have read 1 or 2 pages and then said, fine, go do it, or whatever. And I know that's not exactly what you're talking about, but he, in my mind, he was a bully. He unfortunately, he, everything that people would propose, he would shut down, or he would always say no, or and it is my way or the highway, and things like that. And so it was a huge challenge. So I don't think you're ever going to always fix it, but I think that when you communicate to them toward their preferences, maybe that person needs their ego stroked for whatever reason. Oh yeah, of course we'll do it your way, but you know what? There might be an easier way if we did this, but if you want to do it that way, that's okay. But I'm just telling you, this way perhaps might be better. If you're interested to know about it, let me know, but that's that.
I've encountered similar sabotage. People bring you on board. You're the subject matter expert. You're here to build a program, and then let's say the VP of sales kind of nudges the VP of HR and says, "Hey, you know what? If you gave me Americo's headcount, I would just get you more sales, and this wouldn't be a problem."
Right. Yep.
And that's a reality that most corporate environments work. Right. And then you kind of forget. It's like, you get blindsided, more sales, more revenue. And then you kind of lose everything. You lose the training and the engagement from your teams. You lose your customers who are kind of left in the dark because you've created an environment that puts the customers in the dark.
Absolutely.
Right. So it's
absolutely,
you really got to tread lightly and not be afraid to rebuttal, because preferences, they work both ways. And you have to be able to amicably agree to disagree, but understand and focus on what's important. And
100%.
Right. And most important, it should be your team, because when you take care of your team's going to take care of your customers, and everything works smoothly, or smoother. Let's go with smoother.
There you go. Yes, I like the clarification.
Alrighty. So, on the perspective and team challenges, let's talk a little bit about this. How can leaders starting to identify and address these issues? We talk a whole bunch of issues, and maybe an hour isn't enough, and you can turn this into a master class. And in fact, or you can just reach out to yourself, and you can show up and teach and coach and lead someone through your services. But let's talk about this, because some of it goes beyond skill. And if we talk about alignment and the focus and the importance around alignment, yes, it's not going to be easy. You're not going to get everyone to agree, but it's about understanding the bigger picture, and about understanding what's best for the masses. We know we're not going to be able to appease everyone, but you're going to be able to appease a majority of early adopters and adapters. That's the whole change management dynamic. And you're going to have those laggards who are just going to dig their heels, and they don't care what preferences you have. They have ideas of their own, and they have an agenda of their own, but you're not really focused on that. Let's talk a little bit about the challenges and how you help teams overcome them.
Yeah. So, like I said, that gentleman that I was talking about earlier that I met up with last week, and he talked about 14 months ago, he still remembers that he has to let Joe speak. You know, they had some new people that came on their team between the 14 months ago and now. And he asked me if they could get the assessment done because they were new and they didn't take part 14 months ago. And so then what they did was they had me come on to a team meeting and to share all of the results and of where people fell. Like I said, I physically do it on the line, but then I show a linear chart. So what they're going to actually do is they're going to take my charts before every single meeting and refresh everybody's memory on everybody's preferences. Takes 2 minutes, 5 minutes. They went into a 20-minute discussion of their preferences and how it really helps the team. Because when you really worry about or focus on preferences, it will help you to put people in the right roles. And again, they'll be happier. Everybody can be aligned, and get that communication down pat. Because if someone, here's another example, Americo. I had a workshop, CEO and 15 of his direct reports. I ask people to share their preferences of communication because we don't usually do that. Again, we just go about our business. We think everybody communicates the way we communicate and that that's the right way to do it. And it's not always right for everybody else. So what happened was I made them share their preferences. 1 week later, one of the people that attended that workshop called me and said that in 22 years with the organization, he used to take no less than 2 weeks to get approvals from different people in the team, same team. He wrote emails toward the preferences of each of those people, and within 15 minutes, because the CEO had said, if I'm traveling a lot and I get an email and you want my approval, and if I have to scroll more than 3 times on the phone looking at it, I'm not going to answer now because that means it needs more of my attention. I'll answer it whenever. And then somebody else said, I want all the details that you possibly can. So that person said, I want bullet points. The CEO said, I want bullet points. If you can give me that, that'd be great. Another person said, I want all the details because if I don't get the details, I'm going to keep going back to you and asking for more information before I approve something. And so he wrote 2 different emails, basically same email. One was bullet point, one was detailed. He got approvals, Americo. I am not joking. He got approvals in 15 minutes from both of them when it used to take 2 weeks. So just by people sharing that is what's really, really important. So I help people to understand that. I help people to say, oh my goodness, no wonder why I have a challenge with you. Now I understand what your preferences are. So now I know if you really have a deadline, you really mean that deadline. So I know now that I have to meet that deadline instead of putting it off because I don't really care too much about deadlines. So it's really about getting people to be, again, just understand each other. What people can do is just observe behaviors. Ask people. Communication is key. We've talked about communication alignment. Ask people what their preferences are. There's nothing wrong with that. Share your preferences. There's nothing wrong with that. And those are easy fixes. That's not a big overhaul at all. And ask people, what's one thing that we could do better as a team? When you start getting people to ask each other questions or answer a question together, that's when the magic happens as well. People will be on board because everybody gets a chance to speak, and make sure that, again, that everybody does get a chance to speak, because you will find that they have a lot of value in what they have to say, but maybe it's somebody that isn't always forthcoming with something. They would rather be asked to speak than speak themselves. And communicate effectively. You really actively listen. Actively listening is super important. Listen. I think somebody had written it. I didn't understand. I didn't read it 100% clearly. But listen. We mostly listen to respond. We don't listen to understand, and
So
that
true.
is key. It's amazing how everybody's always worried about, oh, so-and-so said this, and they're like ready to go and answer and interrupt and whatever. Let the person speak and really, really try to understand what they're trying to say.
Agreed. Pause. Don't, when you hear something and you want to respond,
100%.
You got to take that pause and understand
Absolutely.
whether it's someone's preference, whether it's just the tone. If you don't have anything productive, effective, constructive to respond with, hold off on responding, because you'll probably respond with something you're going to regret.
And keep emotions out of things too.
Absolutely.
You know, that's so hard, but if you really focus on that as well and just stick to the facts and don't say you did this or you did that or you did the other, talk about the result of what that behavior was. You know, that really caused our client to get upset, or our client missed a deadline, or we missed a deadline because of XYZ. Don't say you did this or you did that. You screwed up because you did whatever. No, as a result of this being late by 3 days, our client dropped us, or whatever the case may be. Hopefully that's never the case. But yeah, just really, really make sure you keep emotions out of communication as well.
And most importantly, I think we didn't speak about it, but whenever there's a communication breakdown, whenever there's a misunderstanding in preferences, what did you learn from it? Right?
Yes,
Make sure
absolutely.
that there's learning opportunities, so that when you are encountered with a similar scenario, circumstance, that you're not repeating the same frustration and fueling the dysfunction. Right? It's important to kind of dissect, break it up, and say, all right, what are we going to do? How do we move forward differently so that this doesn't happen again? And
Right.
if you're learning, hey, mistakes are going to happen. We're human. In fact, that's the best way to learn is through our mistakes. And but if we're not embedding ourselves in our processes, then it's all for naught.
Absolutely.
Right.
100%.
I didn't realize that this was going to turn into a math lesson. I'm seeing 80-20. I'm seeing 50-50. Like, oh my goodness.
I said I don't like numbers, people.
but they're, I guess, references are, I can't really call it an acronym because they're not letters, but totally understand the 80-20 rule. That definitely,
Yes.
you want to be able to listen, to be understood, listen to be heard.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
80-20 works phenomenal. And 50-50, I think, is more about collaboration and understanding that even when it comes to feedback must work in both directions, both upward and downward, in order for the communication chain or the dynamics to be effective. You know, as a leader, you got to be able and willing to listen and be able to talk to your people, not at your people.
Correct. And
So,
with them. Yes,
with
absolutely.
them. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, as a partner, it's a partnership. The first slide that I show in any of my workshops is an org chart. And I always ask people, what is the most important part of the org chart? And the answer is the lines. It's not, because that's the communication. That's where communication falls. Not who's this person over that person and the other person. It's all about communication.
And more and more companies, even the larger corporations, they're trying to induce a culture where it's that org chart is very linear, and
Right.
anyone can walk in and pull up a seat and talk to their VP or the CEO, and others, it's more lip service. But that's a conversation for another day. But our HR partners are embracing that, and they're stressing the importance with their leadership teams that the frontline employees want to be heard, and we owe it to them to communicate, be transparent, and be respectable, because they're the ones who are, for the most part, keeping the lights on, because they're helping your customers. Right?
Absolutely. You can have all the clients in the world, but if you don't have a good set of team members, it's not going to do you any good.
All right, so we are at the top of the hour. I'm glad we sorted out the audio issue. I'm always mindful of our audience and mindful of the time in which I allot for these. And just this morning, I kind of touched on that in one of my pieces of content. how long should these conversations be? And really, there's no answer. I was on a call yesterday that lasted 3 hours, but we were engaged in conversation. It was interactive. We were all immersed to some degree and really enjoying ourselves. Today, we're here for an hour, and really becomes the segue to the next question: is how can people reach out and connect with you if they wanted to hear more?
Yeah. So I am on LinkedIn, and it is Tracey L. Pirozzi on LinkedIn. But yes, that's my website there that Americo has up on the screen. Pirozzi, there you go. Perfect. Ta-da. Thank you. And I'd be happy to speak with anyone that's on today, whether you are on live or even on the recording. Please feel free to reach out. I would love to hear from you, even if you just want to provide some feedback. I love feedback. That's another thing regarding communication. You should always ask people for feedback regarding yourself, in addition to giving feedback to others. So I love to receive feedback. I want to hear the great stuff, of course, but I would like to hear, could you please get a microphone that doesn't echo? Whatever it may be, I'm all up for it. Please share. That's fine. And I'd love to just engage in conversations. You want to have any, further discussion about what I do, how I can help teams, I'm more than happy for that. And if you have a single or a couple questions, I'm more than happy to have a conversation about that as well.
So you did mention last night, you emailed me and you said this is the first time you've jumped on one of these lives. So you know what? We're going to look aside and not worry about the issue. This is your first conversation. It was a great conversation. I'm happy that I, played a part in this experience for you, and we'll bring you back once we have a new mic and new headset, whatever it is that we need, and we'll bring you back with open arms, and
Thank you.
We'll do this again.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And thanks for everybody for your engagement.
Now, for those who are just joining us, we are wrapping up here. If it's morning for you, I know we have a few people who join us as part of their morning routine in Australia, and in other parts of the world we're just getting up. Here's a little morning call for you. Good morning. Enjoy the replay as we're winding down here. Tracey, once again, I can't thank you enough. I know this is overdue. We didn't have an opportunity to talk about your love for the Tigers that you work with, and the experience that you had on your recent trip to Africa.
Yeah.
Was it Kenya?
It was Kenya. It was, yes.
So
yeah.
Maybe that
outstanding.
Maybe that becomes another guest appearance on my storytelling.
Okay. I'm all for it. Count me in.
Fantastic. All right, folks, we're going to wrap things up here. Let me cue up the closing music and shut things down. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Wherever you are.
Thank you, everybody.
And a great night wherever you might find yourself.